H-U-L-L-C-I-T-Y. H-U-L-L-C-I-T-Y. That's all we need. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host, Alex, and with me I have Dan. How are you, Dan?
Look, I'm okay. I think I'm still recovering from having to get up at 1 a.m. to watch City on the weekend. Followed up by a toddler's birthday party on the Sunday. Made it
lovely.
A very very draining weekend, but
yeah. I think because it was the one weekend that we've had the 1 a.m. starts, and then from this week it's the 2 a.m., which I think in a way will be better, because I think what I ended up doing last season was I'd try to go to sleep at sort of 10 or 11 p.m., get up at 1:50, watch the game and go back to sleep, and that way I'd at least get sort of 3 hours either side. If it's the 1 a.m., it's sort of just too early where you're like, it's not much point going to sleep, so it's a bit more draining.
Yeah, look, that was my thoughts. I thought this is an awkward time. I tried to stay up, and I probably should have just made the decision to go get a little bit of sleep a little bit earlier and get that 3 or 4 hours either side. But it did make it hard after a reasonably full Saturday then to stay awake through what was not the most exciting game of football. Where I don't know, I kind of expected a little bit more. Where we talked about last time, this being a game where we really should have been targeting 3 points, but I don't know, it just didn't really feel like that. It was a pretty flat sort of a game in general, I think.
Yeah, well, we can talk about both games. I mean, look, the title of the episode is The Return of the 1-1s. We can probably talk about both games as a collective, because in a lot of ways, but they felt like very similar games, taking the lead in both, being pegged back against Burnley, really running the risk of losing the game right at the end there if Jayden Anthony finds his scoring boots and doesn't scuff the shot under his foot. But it feels a lot like those early season games where, I mean, to be fair, in those games, it was really us coming back to claw back a point. But it feels as if we've corrected from the Norwich game, which is great. We've sort of got a bit more of a defensive solidity, and we're not conceding as many chances. We're not looking as open as we were in that game. But it feels like we've almost overcorrected now, where we're not actually... I don't know if that's actually fair, to be honest, because we are creating chances. It's just, it doesn't feel as if we're creating clear-cut chances, or potentially maybe it's, the players aren't, just being as clinical as they were again in that sort of 3-game run where we scored, 13 goals or something like that, or 11 goals, whatever it was, where maybe it was just the fact that we took those chances and it sort of deceived us a little bit about how fluid our game can be. But I mean, we were just talking before the episode started that, Bellumi has that great chance against Derby to put us up 2-0. That completely changes the scope of the game. Against Burnley, our frustration is probably, you look at some of the players like Kamara getting chances where Burnley are turning the ball over quite easily against us, but we're just not taking the chances, or we're not acting quickly enough to take advantage of it. Where is it a bit of indecisiveness? Is it the way that the players are shaping up? It's hard to put the finger on it.
Yeah, look, I think particularly in the Burnley game, I guess like in defense of Kamara in that one, I guess like when obviously like squad lists and teams are named and stuff, and you get a sense of what your role is going to be, and you prepare sort of for that. And so to have been named on the bench against Burnley, Kamara would have been expecting to come on late in the half, in the second half, maybe get 20 minutes or something to sort of try and do something. But then, rather suddenly he's got to try and, I guess lucky it was so early in the game, because they've sort of just, everyone's had their warm up and like team warm up and everything. So, but I reckon mentally, not that it's like he should still be able to get up and lift and perform, but I think that's maybe a factor about why he was a little bit disappointing against Burnley. I actually didn't think he was too bad against Derby. I thought
he was great against Derby. Yeah.
Much more direct and attacking, and all the things that I think you were saying maybe in the chat or something about like why doesn't he never seems to like take the player on. He always seems to turn back and certainly that was evident against Burnley. But I guess like going into that Derby game knowing that he's going to be starting, that he's probably going to play the whole 90. Maybe that was just what he needed to help push himself in the, or build himself into some form, because I thought he did a lot of really good things in the Derby game. The Burnley game was, I guess, yeah, it was interesting. It was weird. It was one of those ones where you go like it was frustrating, and that frustration is probably actually like quite positive for us
Yeah.
to come away from a game like that and go, what, we could have won that, or like to be frustrated that the result sort of went against us in the way that it did. I think, I guess, speaks volumes about our our performances despite our league position. Like, I don't think we're not in a terrible league position, but some really strong performances recently against some really good teams. And obviously soon we'll talk about the games to come, but they're getting the next few, certainly a couple against I guess Derby was promoted, but and then Oxford. Like, these are games where we have to start picking up 3 points. But probably the most disappointing thing, obviously, as I sort of touched on, was Millar's injury, which has turned out to be, after scans and stuff, ACL. So
Which
that's a
is
big
kind of crazy that
loss.
he played on. I mean, you
Yeah,
sort
that he
of
tried to. Yeah,
yeah.
that he went. Doesn't, like, it feels like, yeah, it was weird. It was so very
Because
strange. But
I definitely, like, with ACLs, I've definitely seen players sort of jog off or walk off, and you get commentators sort of saying, "Oh, like, it can't be too bad if they've walked off." And I go, "Oh, actually, with an ACL, that's probably a typical sort of hallmark of an ACL is the fact that you can put weight on it. It's just you can't change direction or
yeah,
anything like that." So, but the fact that he was able to play on, I thought, "Oh, okay, maybe it is just something minor." But yeah, really unfortunate news for him.
yeah, it was a really weird one, because I wasn't. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that it was ACL, because I think you see the challenge comes in, and then I was, if he'd played on and had been okay, I was like, oh, it looked like he came down really awkwardly on that leg, and sort of like it was a jar, or like maybe went into a hyperextension or something. And so it doesn't really surprise me then that sort of contact, that when he's come down on it awkwardly, that it's then yeah, turned out to be that, which is really disappointing. I mean, we wish him the best in his recovery, and hopefully that it's all smooth sailing, and that he can get back on the pitch and as soon as possible. But obviously that's still going to be a while away. But as we sort of, hopefully we haven't been the ones who put the curse on him, but we were saying over the last few weeks that it's been that, these players, the Kamaras and some of those other guys, and the Omers, and that they need to be ready, because in a championship season, you need your whole squad, and you need to know that those depth players are going to be able to come in and have an impact and contribute to the team progressing forward. So unfortunately, we've had to call upon Kamara in a more significant way than we probably anticipated so quickly. But yeah, it just becomes a really good opportunity for him to step forward.
And in a way, like, it's interesting. One of the big discussion points I've been noticing amongst City supporters this week is sort of, I guess, the quality of this squad versus the quality of last year's squad, and comparing the two, and sort of looking at how we're performing, and whether we should be expecting better, whether we should be saying, we're actually play. The comment that I've seen is, "Oh, this is a weaker squad than last year," which I don't necessarily agree with, really, because when you look at it sort of pound for pound, player by player, other than Delat versus Badia, I wouldn't have thought that you could really argue that, yes, Philogene on his own is a much better player, but when you compare the fact that we had Philogene and Lakilo last season versus Kamara, Miller, and Balumi this season, I think it's hard to argue that the latter aren't sort of a better collective, I suppose. But it is, I guess, fortuitous in that sense that Jun clearly took that approach of saying, well, let's, get more wingers, because wingers seem to get injured so easily, I think was his comment. And it's unfortunately proved to be the case, but it is fortunate in the sense that we do have that, quality backup in a Kamara, rather than us sitting here saying, well, gee, that's going to be big shoes to fill for Will Jarvis or someone like that.
Yeah, look, I think the other thing in regards to the situation with the wingers is, and I'm not going to place a lot of stock in this, but or a lot of importance or emphasis on this, but there are some players who are either returning or close to returning from the injury list. I think it was mentioned the other day that Cynic is fit, ready to
Can't say
go.
that
He's
with a
back
straight face.
training with the squad. Look,
Yeah.
to be honest, and this is the thing about football. Like, yes, so far for us, he's been pretty freaking dire, and not very
Well,
impressive. But like, but we got a different manager now, a different
yeah.
way of playing, all of these things. He could come out and just hit the form that essentially saw Jun and Tan want to bring him over here in the first place. So, like, I haven't been super impressed, but also like he's probably going to get an opportunity, and it's going to just be the same as Kamara. It's going to be on him to, when he gets that opportunity, to just take it with both hands.
I'm trying to remember the last game he actually played for us because because you say that, but I actually recall him getting in our votes the last time he played. I mean, he came off the bench. I want to say it was against like a Middlesbrough or someone like that. I don't know why they're sticking in my mind. It was someone like that, and
I'm
he
just as a whole, like, what he's maybe
sure,
played
sure.
six games or something,
But yeah, no,
and
but that's
like,
my yeah, that's my point. Is that it's almost like what he does on the pitch is actually been okay. It's the fact that he's on the pitch
mm,
so infrequently that is the bigger issue.
yeah, I
Almost.
mean, yeah, I guess like it's hard with such a small sample size. I guess like we're
Yeah.
going like he's played 6 games and maybe 4 of them weren't great, but then I guess you go, well, he's taken 4 games to get up to speed, perhaps,
Yeah.
which is not unusual. You got to you got to give him 10 games to gel. Remember,
Yeah,
so
that's right. That's the rule. Yeah, that's
so
right. So look, it will be interesting, and Longman as well would be the other
he's
one who's also coming back.
Yeah, I think he's not too far away. I haven't seen any specific dates, but I don't think he shouldn't be too far away. Another few weeks, a month, something. I don't
Well, I
know.
mean, we've got another international break. Not not after this coming weekend, after the next weekend. So I would think with a lot of these players, I
Mm.
think the same with Alzate and I want to say I don't think Rushworth is going to be back, but I think a few of those guys are expected back after the international break.
Yeah. So, and I guess like in terms of depth, like if for whatever reason you needed to call upon them, like I don't think Jarvis has looked out of place in
Hmm.
those few early season appearances he had. And if he's with the under 20, I don't know if he's playing with the under 21s or 23s or whatever, but like they're going great guns at the minute. So um, he
I
could
feel like
be,
it's almost in that weird no man's land where he's too
yeah,
good for the under 23s, but not quite good
yeah.
enough for the first. And it's like,
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't really been following the squad lists or whatever, but um, hopefully he's involved in that, because I guess you always want to be involved in teams that are winning,
hmm.
but it'd be better for him to be playing than not. But um, anyway, back to the Burnley game. Tangents all
Back to
over
the
the
Burnley
place.
game.
Um,
Um,
defense.
Simon's goal. Do we want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we can. I was just going to touch and just say that,
I
like, defensively, I thought we were pretty solid for the most part. I thought Drama had a pretty good game. A couple of wonky passes in there, um, but trying to do the right thing. I think that's the big difference. Was it seemed that when we're giving the ball away in that transition, trying to play out from the back, we're giving it away in those wide channels and not right in the middle. Where last year we're playing it to Seri, who's right in the middle, right in front of the box, or like in front of the goals, and it's just so dangerous. Whereas it kind of feels like, yes, so Drame does occasionally, he's trying to play that ball quickly and it gets sort of picked up when it's read by their wingers or whatever, but they still have to go through. There's time for Drame to recover. It's still got to go through Hughes and Jones before it even sort of gets to a shot. So I think he gave a couple of balls away, but I thought he's pretty good. Hughes again is just really growing into
yeah.
like a just a. I mean. I mean, not growing into it. He's a really solid defender. But I guess growing into the team and that partnership with Jones has just like blossomed really, really quickly. They seem to have a really good understanding of each other. But yes, yeah, sorry.
Part of me, well, sorry, I was just going to say, part of me sort of thinks with, we're talking, and I sort of, I was saying at the start of the episode as well, that the fact that we've got this extra defensive solidity since Norwich, that we've somehow, quote unquote, like learned our lessons. Part of me actually thinks, have we? Or do we just have Hughes that sort of coincides with Hughes coming into the side and he's just cutting out these attacks so much more effectively than McLaughlin, where maybe it's more of a credit to Hughes than to Volta, I guess, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, look, I think when you look back, if you look back at the season, you look back at lineups and you look back at results and things like that, then certainly that change in personnel, if when it has a dramatic impact like that, I mean, it's hard to discount that as a factor. I'd say, like, it's probably a bit of both. In all honesty, I'd say there's a lot that is down to just Hughes and his quality and his reading of the game. But there's, got to be a little bit of that where, they are working on stuff. I mean, Walter still has to pick Hughes to play and all those sorts of things. So Walter should get at least a little bit of the credit for it. But I do think that Hughes deserves any credit that can go his way in regards to helping solidify the back line. But yeah, Simons, a bit of a, not lucky, but deflection on this one. It sort of sends the keeper the wrong way, I think. But gets himself into a position to receive and is willing to take a shot. And
Ball from Kamara as well, which we've been sort of talking about the fact he's getting a lot of those crosses across. He just needs someone on the end of it.
Yeah, I think the key thing is we get into a position where we can shoot and we actually shoot. And when you take shots, things happen, right? Sometimes they're horrendous. Like, I think there was a shot against Derby, maybe. I think from each team. There's one from Derby and one from us that went like well high and wide and not so handsome. Or you nab that deflection that sends the keeper the wrong way and rolls it into the bottom corner. So I think that's probably the biggest thing about our attack is we're getting into. We do actually. I feel like we are getting into lots of dangerous positions, and we're whipping. We're getting balls in, but it's either not getting to like a striker or someone's feet, or we're faffing about with it too much and not just like taking a shot. We're sort of trying to create that perfect situation. So I'm actually very pleased for Simons to go 2-2.
Yeah, equal top goal scorer now.
To be like, to have been shipped out on loan last season and have a really, unlucky spell with some injury and things last season, to come back in and force his way into the reckoning again, and just through his own merits. So that is a strong preseason, and then had to basically fight his way back in once Zambrano arrived and seemed to be, he seems a real classy player as well. But again, credit to Simons. He's doing the right things. He's now popping up with goals from the number 6, from the defensive, that holding midfield position is pretty impressive, and keeping the likes of Zambrano out of the starting 11. So I think he's doing really well, and I'm really happy because he was one that I thought did really well for us initially on loan for Chelsea, and I was really happy when we signed him. So I'm happy. I'm really glad to see him do well. What else?
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh, sorry, you go.
Oh, I was just Puerto again was
Yeah.
had a really solid influence, dictated the game. Lots of real positives from him again. I think he seems to be. I think like with someone, if you get him and then someone like Alzate in the team together, again, I don't know where he fit everyone in, but I think those two seem like the two, I guess, classiest, who can sort of hold the ball, pick a pass, seem the most composed of sort of the midfielders we have, compared to Omer, Slater, who seem much more sort of high energy, high octane sort of midfielders. I think those two, Puerto and Alzate, could be really, really influential in the way that we actually get to utilize the wings. And instead of setting up play and switching play and playing those balls through, they seem to have a really good passing range, and I think they'd be great assets together on the park at some point, hopefully.
Yeah, and I think it says a lot that we'll talk Derby in more detail in a second, that we are starting to see a more settled lineup, particularly in that midfield 3, where for a long time we were seeing a change every game, and I think for Derby that was actually unchanged in that midfield 3. I'm curious about Zambrano's exclusion at the moment and whether that has anything to do with any decisions on length of a ban or anything like that, where we can then sort of say, well, he hasn't played in these games, so we can backdate it, sort of thing. But nevertheless, it means that Simons has been getting that opportunity, and like London buses, it comes two in a row. Was it last season we had this happen a few times as well, where players would score their first goal for the club and then score the next game, and it was like, I don't know, it was Ohio and Carvalho and someone else as well. I'm pretty sure did it last season. It was funny. So it's funny that Simons has done it as well. And like,
did Zaruri go goal, or did
might
he
have
go
been,
assist?
yeah, I think Zaruri
Or
was
did he
at
go assist goal, or
Leicester
something
and
like that?
Southampton. I think he got the 2 goals in back-to-back games. Yeah, that's right. But look, it's interesting that so I sort of joked about it that Simons is sort of equal top goals. Like we've had a lot of players score 2 goals. Bedia, Balumi, Simons, a few others. Oh yeah, that was the other one. Cheers, Danny. It was Tyler Morton did it as well. Got the 2 and 2. But yeah, look, it's interesting that outside of that purple patch of 3 games, we have really struggled to find any sort of consistent goal scoring form. You can spin that as a positive that we've got this widespread of goal scorers, but it would be nice to see Badia pop up with probably a couple more goals. But look, we'll run through the votes for this game and then we can talk Derby in a bit more detail as much as we can. But I'll start it off. I had Drame as my man of the match in this one. I thought he was terrific. I know you said he had probably a few loose passes, but getting forward, driving into the area, creating some dangerous opportunities, overlapping with Kamara, I thought he did really well and was a big standout for me. Hughes as well, like we sort of touched on. I think he's just every game going from strength to strength. It's awesome that there's already that sort of cult. Would you call it cult? Sort of, whenever he gets the ball, everyone sort of chants Hughes, which is really cool. And then I had Kamara for the 1. I thought, he sort of grew into that game, had some good opportunities, got the assist for Simon's goal. And I think he's getting, he needs one to go in for his confidence to really peak, but I think he's getting there. Like he's seeming to be more decisive with what he's doing, which is good to see.
Yeah, I actually, I'm actually not too similar, but I also gave Drama the 3. I was going to say similar, and then I looked at the rest of my votes. But I gave Drama 3, despite, as you say, despite the couple of the few loose passes and stuff. But I still think like he's trying to do the right thing with the ball, and then certainly, the way that he was getting forward and contributing to attacking play was outstanding. He was. It was like having a Louis Coyle on the other side of the field. He seemed to be up and down all day. So very impressive performance from him. I have gone 2 points to Simons just for taking the shot, getting the goal. I do feel bad. You mentioned you gave points to Kamara, and I feel bad because it's his assist, and he was okay, but he doesn't get any points from me this time. But then I gave 1 point to Puerto, who again I think has been really solid in that midfield.
Yeah, nice one. No, that's all good. Always good to have a bit of a spread of votes. And then Derby. I mean, we sort of have already sort of given an overview of this game, I suppose, but it was a really disappointing one from the perspective of, I guess unconsciously you sort of go to these promoted clubs and think that we should be grabbing the 3 points, and of course there's no right to the 3 points. And Derby have a great home record, and I think we said last week that they've won something like the last 3 or 4 games in a row against us. So it was definitely going to be tricky from that perspective. But it's just frustrating when you go 1-0 up, you have a great chance through Kamara passing it into Balumi to go 2-0 up, to then not kind of go on with it was really frustrating to see. Badia not having a great game, but then also Pedro off the bench not having a great game. So you're sort of starting to get to this point of the season where you think, well, there's a pretty obvious flaw in the 11, I would say, and it's up top. And we'll talk Portsmouth in a bit, but I know Burstow got on late and didn't do a whole lot, but you almost start to think, of the 3 options, he's sort of the long-term option that we've got. He's our player. He's signed to a long-term deal, but he is here on loan. Pedro's on a 1-year deal. Do we get to a point where we go, look, he can't be any worse than those 2, and just give him a run of games?
Yeah, look, I think yes, Burso came on late, and yes, he didn't do much, but also he came on as a right winger. So he wasn't even in like his sort of preferred position. I think,
which is crazy when you've also then got Kamara on the left, not in his preferred position.
Yeah, I just think like Bursto, yes, he's young, he's inexperienced, but I actually haven't minded his few appearances, and they've been quite limited. But the times that he's been played in the centre, I actually don't. I've felt like he wouldn't actually be too far away from nabbing a goal. Um, I guess that's certainly the biggest frustration at the moment is that center forward. We just need one of them just to
Mm.
get a goal, really sort of like then just build some confidence and sort of go on with it. But um, it's probably the biggest sort of sense of frustration at the moment. For me, Beatty does a lot of good, but for just as much as he does that's really good, he's on his heels just as often, and he's very like it's either yeah, I guess like I guess that's true of any player. They're either doing the right thing or they're not doing the right thing, but like it just feels like
I know what you mean, though. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like you either look at him and you're like that's such a good run that he makes, or it's just like oh he's on his heels. It seems it's like it just feels very extremes with him at the moment.
Mm.
Which maybe that's he hasn't they just haven't quite figured out the communication is not quite right or whatever it is, or the timing of those passes or whatever, but he just doesn't quite seem like has got it all figured out just yet, which
Which
when
is a
if you
shame because he hit those 2 goals in a row where you
mm,
thought, "Okay, he's just gonna hit the ground running now."
yeah, I think he has so many good attributes, and if he can get it sorted, like he's big, he's strong, he's quick. I guess probably his weakest thing is like ball at feet. I think like when he's got to dribble with the ball, it's not great. He seems to really we really need to be able to just play those diagonal balls through the defense and allow him to just run into the box and just sort of have to tap it home. I think they're going to be sort of his best opportunities. Or like you're whipping the ball back from across and he's just coming in and just hitting it for the
Which
first
Kamara's
time.
doing really well, and
Mm,
it's just the link up between them, I think, that's missing.
yeah, but yeah, that centre forward position, that's something that does need to be sorted out. And I guess you go. I thought, yeah, Pedro was absolutely woeful when he came on. He was on for about 40 minutes and did just about nothing. I think he won a free kick from wrestling with the defender. That was about it. Um, but I was really unimpressed with his efforts. I think it was in that game an absolute downgrade to bring him on. I thought I don't think Betty was great, but I thought he seemed to at least be trying a little bit, and it felt I actually was a bit surprised when he was hauled off as early as he was. Yeah, I thought Kamara was really really good in this game. I thought for the parts that I saw, I was dozing in the first half. It was just as I sort of touched on before, not the most exciting game. I thought it got better in the second half, and I feel like we're sort of trending towards having stronger second halves at the moment, where
Mm.
we go
Which
okay, and then it seems like we get a bit of a rev, or we get that team to the halftime motivation, or whatever it is from Walter, and then we sort of come out firing reasonably well in the second half.
But I think that's
Um,
also like the point I was saying last week around the fact that our midfield depth is so strong that we
mm,
can sort of bring subs on and our level doesn't really drop other than
mm,
Pedro. Our level doesn't really
yeah.
drop, which then means we've got these fresh legs
Mm.
to run against this tiring side. So yeah, I think that definitely helps us in second halves.
Yeah, so yeah, I think second half I think was good. We seemed to go about it with good intent. Um, Kamara with some taking his player on, and there's one really juicy cross, which might have been the Balumi one. It seemed it
Mm.
skipped across sort of the 6 yard box. I think Betty had just missed it, and then I don't know if it was it might I think it was Balumi at the back post
Yeah, yeah.
who missed it as well, and you just went there was 2 feet that it went past, and just one of them just needs to get anything on it, and we go in, but. Um, yeah, I mean, I just watched. Simon's goal made the top 5 goals of the week or goals of the round or something for the championship, and it was, another good. He just got it and went. I'm just going to have a shot. And these things, fortune favors the bold, I suppose.
And this is also my point about like if we're taking shots, not necessarily first time, but quickly, like just
Mm,
have a bit of pace and decisiveness in decision making,
mm,
and things can happen. Whereas it felt like, and even Kamara, to be fair, who I thought had a great game, as we said, there was a few times that he just sort of stood on the ball and just slowed
mm,
everything. It's the same as Philogene was doing last season, so
yeah.
it's not unique to this side or this manager,
Mm,
but it's just we just take all the pace out of the game, and it means that teams get back, they defend, they they stuffed the box with players, and it just means that all this potential is just gone.
Yeah, I think that's especially when we're supposed to be playing this like heart attack football, the high octane, getting forward, transitioning quickly, all those sorts of things. It's kind of undone when you get to the edge of the opponent's box and we go, oh, I actually don't know what to do with it here. I guess I'll just hold on to it and fiddle around with it and wait for all the defense to get back before I do something. So, like obviously, what are we? 12 games now.
Yeah,
So
12, 13 games. Oh, 12 games, I think you're right. Yeah, so
yeah,
exactly a quarter of the season.
so a quarter of the way through the season, like we look a much better team than we did in like the first 3 or 4 games of the season. I think so. Uh, I'm not too disappointed. I'm probably in this game disappointed we didn't get the 3 points. I thought when we went ahead, as you touched on, there was a couple of really good opportunities to go 2-0. And also, I think the goal we conceded, like a little bit unlucky. Coyle does well at first, but then like loses his footing, and the cross is able to be whipped in without any pressure on him. So uh, I guess the nature that we conceded was a bit frustrating because that cross comes in with no pressure, goes straight to the back post, and there's not really anyone. I think Drame was the one who was supposed to be marking him a bit tighter, but gets basically a free header at the back post to put it in. So very frustrating, especially from whoever it was that scored. I can't remember his name, but really starting to annoy me, and I was like, God, I hope this guy doesn't score because like he's big wanker energy.
Yeah.
So and then he went and
Celebrated in
scored.
front of our fans as well.
Yeah, and then he went and scored. So I think it was something like, because I think Hughes had tackled him maybe on the sideline not long before that, and he'd had a big whinge and tried to start a bit of a push and shove about it or something silly like that. So I was really like, why? Who is this guy? Like, what is his deal? But yeah, look, disappointing r- results. I guess like at the end of the day, a game we probably should have and would have been really good to have taken 3 points from. But the draw's not, I don't think, super damaging for us. Lots of teams stayed fairly like. I don't think the complexion of the table didn't change that much with that result.
It's not damaging, but it does start to feel like
Mm.
we're not capitalizing on opportunities, and we're just sort of letting the season pass us by a little bit. As Danny says here, I definitely think we will try and sign a striker in January. I think there's little doubt of that, especially because we missed out on signing the player. I want to say it was a strike. I think it was Fofana from Chelsea was the one that Baz and a few others said we were really close to signing on deadline day, but I think he wasn't particularly keen on the move, which is what it is. But I think that's sort of our issue is that we seem to put all our eggs in these sort of high caliber, high quality targets, and then when they fall through, we go, oh, we've got no backup, so we're going to go from one extreme of going really expensive, exciting, flashy, high quality strikers, all the way back down to like sort of free transfer Pedro and loan signing from Germany in Badia players instead, and you kind of go, well, there is a middle ground. Yes, we didn't get striker's name's going out of my head now, the one from Bristol City who went to Middlesbrough, who we were going to spend sort of
Cannon.
No, Cannon was another one as well. Yeah, Cannon, Conway is what I'm thinking of,
Yeah.
who went up to Borough, and you go, they're really exciting, high quality young players, but surely there's like a next step down that we could have had targeted or ready to go for. But anyway, look, we'll see what happens in January. I think if we, this is sort of highlighting where the flaw in the squad is. It shows that actually we don't need that much of a reinforcement in January in other positions. It's really just that, like, we could have one signing in January that could transform our fortunes. But anyway, we'll see how that all pans out. Votes for this game?
I went 3 to Simons. I thought another really strong performance, capped off with a goal that put us in a winning position. Unfortunately, we couldn't hold on to it. I went 2 to Kamara for what was, I think, his best performance in a City shirt to date, and obviously plenty of time to keep improving. And 1 point to Hughes, who I thought, he picked up a yellow card, but I thought did a lot of strong work defensively, cutting out those counters from Derby.
Fair enough. Two of the same three players, just in a different order. I had Kamara as my man of the match. I thought he was awesome, especially in that first half. Was a real handful, which was surprising that he's now starting to show it on that left hand side. Even though Portsmouth supporters were saying he really struggled there last season, and to be fair, he did struggle to start this season, but he's really starting to come into his own, which is great. Simons, I gave the 2. I thought there was also a really good defensive clearance he made. It might have been like a double block where I think the second one he was lying on the floor and got a head to it or something like that. As well as obviously the great goal was awesome to see. And then I went Drame for the 1 again. I thought, I thought he had a good performance. But I sort of struggled for that 1 vote. Like you said, it was a tough game in some patches, but we sort of grew into that in that second half. We'll round things off quickly with a look ahead to Portsmouth this weekend. John Mousinho in charge at Portsmouth. Really struggling. They've only got the 1 win for the season, which came against QPR. So there is some talk that if we were to beat them this weekend, that Mousinho might face the sack, which would be interesting because he did have a really good promotion season with them, and I think even signed a new deal just recently. So it's good when you see clubs trying to put that faith in a manager, but then sometimes they're sort of fighting against a rising tide in a sense.
I feel like we can relate to that more than
No,
most
that's right.
clubs, to have a really successful season and then get the sack.
Yeah, that's right. The other fun element with Portsmouth is, of course, their affinity with the A League and some of the players that they've brought in. Because, of course, we've got Yengi. I think is making the bench for them these days after doing quite well for them in League One last season. And was it someone from your club?
Yeah, Jacob Farrell, but he's
That
injured,
was
I
it.
think. So he can their whoever their Ogilvy, I think, is their like left back or right back,
Yeah.
something like that. And he got injured. Jacob Farrell came in, played a great game, and then he had like a freak accident or something at training and hurt himself, and has been out ever since.
And I want to
So he
say,
has,
did
and
Silvera go
Silvera's
there
on.
alone?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's there on loan, so he's been on the bench and coming, sort of, I guess, kind of rotating from bench to starting 11 a little bit, I think. But um,
Mm.
yeah,
So interesting.
they've been struggling a bit. So I think this really is like more so than the Derby game. Even though they're both promoted clubs, this is very much a game that's there for the taking.
Yeah, and as Mike's
Yeah, I
just
was
said, in
actually
terms
just about to say, like, this really does feel
must
like a must-win game. Like,
I'd say
if you
this is this is actually our second must-win game of the season. I would have said that the first must-win was Stoke, because that was one
oh,
where we hadn't won for the season.
yeah,
Stoke was struggling; they'd sacked their manager, and we needed to show something. So, and we got the win in that game. But this feels like, it feels less like a must-win. Like it's almost just like a win is the expectation, and if we
yeah,
don't win, like as in, I guess what I mean by that is, we should be winning this. If we don't win, I think it's more of a concern for Volta than it necessarily, like, it doesn't feel like this is going
mm,
to, suck us into a relegation battle or something.
yeah.
It's more, what does it say about Volta if we can't win this game?
Yeah, I think that's fair. It must win in the sense that,
Mm,
like, we really do have to win this game, but if we don't, it's not going to be hugely damaging in the long run. It'd just be extremely disappointing. Whereas you're right, certainly that Stoke game was sort of a different context. We hadn't won. If we didn't win then against a team that was struggling as they were, when were we going to win? So,
yeah.
but yeah, look, I'll be anything less than 3 points, I'm disappointed with. And to be honest, probably anything. I mean, I feel like they've been lots of scored games with them, though. I think I feel like they've actually been scoring a few.
Yeah, I think they've
Um,
actually like, their performances haven't been that bad. I saw
mm,
someone saying that it's almost like there's no standout horrible team in the division this year, but somebody has to be last, and so it just
yeah,
happens to be Portsmouth
yeah. Look, hopefully they can start winning some games. But just
after
like
this week. Yeah.
yeah, after this one. So I stop that. Stop pressing those buttons. Um, I'm hopeful. I'm beyond hopeful. We'll get 3 points from this. I'm confident. And I just think, like, like over the last few games, particularly, and you go like, we've had really tough games against Sunderland, Burnley. and Derby as well, where you go, those were really three really tough games, and we, for the most part, we still played the way we want to play, and we competed with three really good, well organized teams. So if we can go and do that against a team that's less well organized and struggling for form and some of those sorts of things, then I think like it only stands to reason that we should be able to get the points there.
It definitely does give me the same vibes as like the QPR or the Cardiff games where we were playing a side, really struggling for confidence and form, and we were able to take our chances. So, yeah, look, it's definitely the game that I think, a 2-3-0 win is in order. I'd like to see Burstow start up top, to be honest. I think as much as you don't want to disrespect the opposition, say, oh, it's just Portsmouth, but you do want to say, if not now, then when do we give him a chance to stake a claim to being our starting striker? But other than that, pretty happy just to go with the same lineup as last time out. Surely it's nailed on that Kamara can get a goal in this one against the club he played for last season, if nothing else. And yeah, back a 3-0 win.
Yeah, look, I think those couple of, I mean, that's a good shout to say Burstow get a start, because I mean, regardless of all that, you also look at the other two options and you go, well, have they really, set the league alight? Has Beattie done enough to maintain his starting position? Has Pedro done enough when he's come on to earn a starting spot?
Yeah, what's Danny
3-0
saying?
Portsmouth.
Is Portsmouth mate saying it to me 3-0 Portsmouth doesn't want to live in that reality. Yeah. I mean, we beat them 4-0 last time out. Sorry, last time we played them, which was in League One. So it'd be nice to repeat that if we can.
Yeah, and I don't think either of those have really done enough to cement themselves as as the starting number 9 on a real regular basis. And like Betty has certainly had plenty of opportunities. Pedro's started there, had a couple of decent stints off the bench there, and Burstow's been limited to one. Was there a game he started
I think that's it.
there?
No, I don't think. I
Or,
mean,
or,
well,
or did he get one good stint early in the thing, and then
he had
mostly
that
like
Millwall
5
game.
minutes?
Did he start the Millwall game, or maybe just came on for that one?
I don't know. I can't remember, but I feel
But
like
anyway,
he's had very limited opportunities there.
yeah.
And I don't think he's looked really worse in any way than the others. So I'd be very happy to see him have a go. Have a go there. Like, what's the worst that happens? We don't score. Well, we haven't really done the
That's right.
strikers. The number 9s haven't been scoring anyway. And if he does bag a goal, well, you go, well, cool. Let's reward some goal scoring. Let's reward some form and put some more faith in young players. It seems to be something we're going pretty well at the moment. Is backing the youth and backing the talent. So. As you said before, like we brought him here for a reason, as on a long-term deal. There's no point in him just sitting in the squad all year, not playing any games. So,
and I think that's it. And I think, look, if he gets the start and he does nothing, and we go, okay, well, fine, let's loan him out in January, get him some League One experience or something like that. But we've got to know what we've got on our hands. Like we've got to give him a proper chance, I think. So
yeah,
it'd be great to see him get. Like you said, it's what's the worst that happens? He doesn't score well. Bedia and Pedro aren't.
it's fine because Kamara's going to get a hat trick.
Well, look, we might leave things there. Hopefully we can bag the 3 points this weekend, and we'll be back next Monday to review that one and look ahead to the last 2 games before that international break. So thank you for joining me for this one, Dan.
That's all right, anytime.
And Liam as well. And until next time, come on, City.